Hello everybody, welcome to the neighborhood. This is episode 2 of the weekly movie news show where I just run down the news and stories from Hollywood. My name is Daniel. If you're new here to the channel, welcome. Hope you have fun. Today we're going to be talking about a couple of things, mainly the Joker controversy. It finally came out, so we're going to talk about that. Birds of Prey trailer, Martin Scorsese, we're going to talk James Franco, and gender bias spellcheck software. All of that's coming up soon. But first now, we are going to talk about what I saw this week. So, in the weekend, I saw a movie that I bought for my wife a long time ago, but I never got around to seeing, which was A Simple Favor. Actually had a really good time with this one. It's kind of this super melodrama, high, kind of crazy story about this mystery, this kind of like Gone Girl cranked to 11 type thing. And if you thought Gone Girl was crazy, this is kind of crazy too. I really loved the costumes in it. I thought Blake Lively and Anna Kendrick had some fantastic chemistry going on. This movie sweats the bisexual energy from the TV. It is wonderful for that. And for a movie that I thought I knew where it was going, I didn't quite predict it. So I was actually kind of impressed with how the plot moved. I'm not the biggest fan of some of the comedy. It's kind of hit or miss for me, and I think once you find out what's happening, the movie kind of takes a while to finish. But overall, I really did enjoy Simple Favor. If you haven't checked it out, go ahead and check it out. Second up, for the Blu-ray Blind Buy, if you haven't seen that episode, it's going to be somewhere in the card, description, end screen, wherever. I saw Vantage Point, which I had never heard of before. This is kind of a thriller. It's almost like London Has Fallen meets something like Crash. You know, the president gets murdered, and there's 8 people who saw it, 8 different points of view. You piece together the story as the movie goes on. And for what it was, I thought it was alright. I like Dennis Quaid a lot more than most people, I think, so I think his performance kind of elevated it for me. But for what it was, just this sort of action movie that's built around this specific kind of premise or like gimmick, I thought it was fine for it. And then I saw the big movie of the week, which was Joker, and I almost hated it. The movie, just to me, was so obnoxious, and it was trying to pass off themes that we've seen in movies prior as something that's brand new or revolutionary or something like that, and it just, nothing really landed for me. I thought that a movie like You Were Never Really Here handled this sort of murderous psychopathy well, and this one was just kind of too in my face without any real chaos. I felt that for all the bombastic nature of the film, the actual story that was in it really didn't amount to anything other than the basics of what you would expect from somebody who turns to being a psychopathic clown. But we're going to use my discussion of Joker. And by the way, if you want to know more of my thoughts on that, somewhere, card, description, end screen, pinned comment is going to be the review. Just go find it. Right now, we're going to talk about the Joker controversy. Before the release of this film this week, there was controversy all over. People were worried that because the rumor for the Aurora, Colorado shooting in 2012 over The Dark Knight Rises was that the killer dressed up as the Joker. You know, people were worried that you might see some copycat killers come into this screening, that the Joker in this story was being reinvented as a pseudo anti-hero for the kind of downtrodden and mentally ill, a symbol of the far right, this incel culture, da-da-da. First off, I will say that rumor that was spread about the guy dressing up as Joker was false, according to... Let me check here. I want to make sure I've got this right. I was looking this up earlier, forgive me. I don't know why I've got that song in my head. I just do. But let me see here. Never mind. Okay, so the New York City Police Commissioner gave that rumor that the guy who shot up the Dark Knight Rises screening was dressed up as the Joker, but realistically, the Colorado District Attorney, George Brochler, said that Holmes, the guy who shot up I think James Holmes, the guy who shot up the theater, he only picked that movie because it was the biggest blockbuster at the time. So, that rumor's been discredited. And people were worried about copycat killers, people were talking about censorship, people were talking about not necessarily outright banning the movie, but questioning what place this kind of movie had in our culture, and the people that made the movie came out, like, look, I believe Phillips said that I believe Joaquin Phoenix said that the responsibility of a filmmaker is not to teach morality to its audience, that its audience should know right from wrong, which I kind of agree with. It's kind of a weird shame that for all the hoopla that was made about this film, that the movie just kind of comes off as boring or kind of trite. I feel like the media have kind of puffed this story up to be bigger than it actually is. There was a Southern California theater who stopped a screening of Joker because of, quote, a credible threat against what might have happened. Thankfully, there haven't been any incidents related to the Joker movie being released. Nobody has been shot, nobody's been hurt, which is always fantastic, and it's good to see that the release has gone off more or less without a hitch. There was a picture that I saw of somebody's AMC theater that posted a note that said no singles were to be allowed for the Joker movie, that if you're going to watch the Joker movie, you needed to watch it with somebody else, which I'm not totally sure of the veracity of that. I couldn't confirm that that was legit what was going on, but who knows, it might have been an isolated incident. And I could tell there was definitely some unrest from people thinking, well, now that the media's talked this up, maybe somebody will be inspired to go do something horrible at one of these screenings. And I don't want to blame the film for anything. I don't want to blame a film for any real-life violence because art exists on its own. Unless you're actively saying, go out and kill people in your movie, I don't think that this film really glamorizes violence in the way some people have said. And, it becomes a slippery slope when we start looking at art as the thing to be blamed for somebody taking out real-life violence instead of the person that actually, held the gun and pulled the trigger, But as the reviews pour in and as the discussion rages on, I bet you we'll see some more discussion as to this controversy. So we're going to move on to one of my favorite segments on this show, the Triple Trailer Threat, which is where I talk about 3 trailers that came out this week. The first one being the biggest one, Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of one Harley Quinn. I saw the teaser for the trailer on Twitter, and I was kind of worried because I saw some of the designs start to look kind of like Suicide Squad. Again, that grimy mixed with the comic book colors of the DCEU I've never been a really big fan of. But when I saw the trailer in full, I was inspired by the thought that this one seems to be taking it kind of back a little bit. This is introducing not only Harley Quinn, but people like Black Canary, I think, and Huntress. And we've also got Ewan McGregor as Black Mask, who in this part doesn't really look like the Black Mask we know from the comics, the one that's related, I believe, to Batman. But I think this one might be more of an origin story for that character. We might end up seeing him get the mask at the end of the movie. This one seems pretty straightforward, that Harley Quinn has broken up with the Joker. She's moving on to become her own person, and I believe takes a job at one of Black Mask's establishments as a singer, kind of like this lounge jazz singer, and she wants to be free of that because I'm assuming that Black Mask, as the criminal that he is, does some messed up stuff, and Harley Quinn's not cool with that. She wants to be her own woman, so she teams up with the Birds of Prey to take down Black Mask and basically find her own independence. I assume this is the Fantabulous Emancipation that we're talking of. This one is directed by Kathy Wan. I've never seen anything she's done. I feel really bad about that, but hopefully, from what I can see in this trailer, it looks like there's a lot of fun to this one. It looks like Harley Quinn is allowed to really turn up more than she did in Suicide Squad, and she breaks the fourth wall a couple times. She has the hyenas, she has the hammer, her costumes are just crazy and all over the place, so it looks like Kathy Wan has allowed Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn to really kind of take over, blossom, and change herself up. So I'm actually really excited to see this one. I really enjoy the kind of girl power energy that's in this. The only thing I'm a little concerned about is that right now it is very much the Harley Quinn movie, and despite, you see all the names on the screen pop up one by one, the only one I can really recognize was, I believe, Mary Elizabeth Winstead. I believe she's playing Huntress. I kind of want to see more of those characters build up, but I guess with the first real trailer, you gotta bring home the person that you're selling, and right now the person we're selling is Harley Quinn. And we're gonna move on to this next trailer for The Gentleman, a new crime movie directed by Guy Ritchie, and it stars Matthew McConaughey, Charlie Hunnam, Hugh Grant, Henry Golding, and a bunch of other people. This one, look, I'm a fan of Guy Ritchie's movies. I love Snatch, Sherlock Holmes, especially The Man from U.N.C.L.E. And I have a soft spot in my heart for King Arthur, as crazy and insane as that movie is. So, The Gentleman, I believe it's about two crime gangs that are going at it. One of them led by Matthew McConaughey, one of them led by Henry Golding. I think Henry Golding wants to buy out Matthew McConaughey's gang, who has farms of weed, and Matthew McConaughey obviously isn't having any of it, and so this gang war begins. And this movie just looks insane. It looks like a big old ball of crime cheese with a bunch of actors that I enjoy, just shooting guns and going crazy and making weird faces and all that stuff. Did I mention Colin Farrell's in this movie? Colin Farrell's in this movie. It looks like a Guy Ritchie movie. It looks like it's full of momentum and motion and excitement. And as a guy that really enjoys his movies, I think that, this one's going to be fun to watch. I think that one's coming out, I want to say December. I might be wrong on that, but I'm going to say December. And then the last trailer that I saw for this week was Sam Mendes' 1917. This one's getting a huge Oscar buzz, both above the line and below the line. A lot of technical awards. There's been a lot of conversation that Roger Deakins, who won the Oscar for Blade Runner 2049, he's back again, and this time they're going to shoot the entire movie in one shot. No edits, just continuous motion. And for anybody that's seen even a tracking shot that's maybe 2 minutes, for anybody that's tried to make a tracking shot, you know that a full-blown movie that way, it's a big task. And if you can pull this off without hiding your edits and maybe passing through a dark room or whatever, that stuff is impressive, and it's gonna require a ton of work, But this one is taking place at the tail end of World War II. I believe General or Commander Kenneth Branagh sends this kid out to tell another battalion to stop their attack on the Germans because they've received some intel that if they do, then all the people on their side are going to die, including that kid's brother. So the whole story is about this kid trying to relay that message, save his brother, and I'm assuming a bunch of battles and crazy stuff ensues. A lot of people are really going crazy over this trailer. I'm not one of them. I think it's fine. It looks alright to me. And I'll have to see the movie. I'll have to see how the technicals go within it. I think it looks nice. I really like a lot of the wide shots. You get a really good sense of how big this world is. And especially the one scene in the trailer where the guy is running away from all the explosions going behind him. They look really, really good. And so in the spirit of something like, I think like Hacksaw Ridge and Dunkirk, this movie looks to be placing its mark into this decade's pantheon of war movies. So that's going to be it for the Triple Trailer Threat. We are going to talk right now about another topic, which is Martin Scorsese calling the Marvel movies not cinema. This one blew up Twitter this week, that Martin Scorsese director of Goodfellas, Raging Bull, Taxi Driver, The Aviator, one of my favorite movies of all time, Silence, The Wolf of Wall Street, one of the greatest, my favorite director on the planet. He was in an interview where he was talking about watching the Marvel movies, and he said that he's tried to watch them, but afterwards he doesn't really regard it as cinema, instead likening them to theme parks. He doesn't believe that they are the cinema, I'm going to paraphrase here, that conveys emotional, psychological responses from one human to another human. And people on the internet blew up. People started calling Scorsese an elitist. He's overrated. And some people, like James Gunn, were saddened by the effect. He said, like, wow, Scorsese made the movie The Last Temptation of Christ, which was protested by religious groups before people had even seen the movie. And so now he's doing the same thing to my movie. The interview didn't state, I believe, if Scorsese had seen any of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, by the way. But people were taking some offense to this, and truly, I want to boil it down to this. Look, as much as I revere Martin Scorsese as a filmmaker, he's a man with an opinion. And if he doesn't like Marvel movies, he just doesn't like Marvel movies. I don't think it's worth blowing up about it. I don't think that makes somebody an elitist just because they don't like a certain type of film. I mean, I know we get a lot of hate if you're not a Star Wars fan or if you're not a DC fan from the internet. And I think this is just another example of the kind of vitriol that we've established that we've allowed to build up on the internet, and people just kind of go ape over anything that doesn't completely agree with their specific multi-complex worldview. If one thing is out of whack, then the whole world's gone to hell. And I think that's kind of what's happening here. If you haven't seen the movie, I would say don't criticize it. I don't agree completely with Scorsese's assessment. I think that some films like Black Panther and Guardians of the Galaxy and Iron Man kind of elevate above that superhero nuance. I believe they are talking about a lot more than just the kind of Saturday morning cartoon fare. But even if we're talking about Saturday morning cartoon fare, I heard somebody make the comment that I don't think kids in the 30s who are watching King Kong and The Wizard of Oz are that much different from the kids that are inspired by Wonder Woman and the Avengers. So for every generation has their moment of pulp. I mean, Scorsese is a big fan of Corman films, and he loves the old westerns. So I just definitely think that, to a degree, this is somebody just being like, this brand of pulp, this brand of entertainment just really isn't for me. But I wouldn't take it as more than just his saying, this is not for me. I don't think Scorsese is saying that this is the type of movie that should be excommunicated from the rest of the world. I don't really think we need to take it to that level. I really do think this is a man who is making his preference known by just his way. And when we're talking about what is not cinema, I mean, good lord, people, you've got like a billion definitions for what cinema could possibly be. It just is in the eye of the beholder like everything else. So don't freak out. It's okay if Martin Scorsese doesn't like Marvel movies. That means that opening night for Avengers 5, you can count on the man not stealing your seat. So we're going to move on. Talking about Marvel and Prestige. We're going to talk about Avengers Endgame announcing their Oscar campaign. The big story about this was, for some people, that Robert Downey Jr. was not being campaigned in Best Actor, despite the directors Joe Russo, I think it's Joe Russo specifically, was saying that Downey Jr.'s performance, he hadn't seen anything like that resonate with an audience, so he believed that should be nominated for Best Actor. And certainly, I believe in a weaker year, this might have happened, but the Best Actor race this year, guys, it's just packed. I mean, first off, Leonardo DiCaprio from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Then you've got Christian Bale in the Ford v Ferrari movie. Then you've got Adam Driver in Marriage Story. If you want to go further, Antonio Banderas for Pain and Glory. That's been announced too. Jonathan Pryce for The Two Popes. Hell, Netflix wants to put up Eddie Murphy for Dolomite Is My Name. and you've just got a wealth of people this year that are going into the Best Actor race. It is honestly packed. It's one of the biggest packed races we've seen in years. So for something like Avengers Endgame, where his performance didn't receive the kind of rave madness that something like Black Panther did. Let me see here. I think I froze for a second. Sorry, my computer kind of went quiet on me. But the Best Actor race is just packed this year. And for something that came out in May, and a lot of people's reviews, I don't think critics have really gone to bat for Robert Downey Jr. or Avengers Endgame for that matter more than something like Black Panther. So I really don't think that Best Actor was in the cards. I think it was smart for Marvel to kind of push away from that narrative and go towards the other contenders. Right now they're going for picture, director, adapted screenplay, editing, costumes. I think makeup is in there, maybe. Production design, visual effects, and score. If there's anything I think Avengers might have a shot for, it's visual effects, for sure. Maybe one of the sound categories for a nomination, but I think the one that interests me a lot is score. Alan Silvestri's Avengers theme, that's one of the few, big movie themes that I've really remembered over the past decade, and I thought that Silvestri's work, taking that theme, that heroic theme, and kind of taking it into different directions, whether it be weird, whether it be dark, whether it be triumphant, I thought that stuff really worked. So there's a decent chance he might get nominated again for Avengers Endgame. Right now, we're going to move on from Marvel, and we're going to talk about gender bias. Specifically, Geena Davis, I know her as the mom from Stuart Little. Geena Davis from A League of Their Own and Thelma and Louise. She is partnering with Walt Disney Studios on a gender bias spell checking software. So this Thursday at the New Zealand Power of Inclusion Summit, Geena Davis, who has founded this company called Geena Davis Institute on Gender in Media, she announced that she was partnering with Walt Disney Studios and the University of Southern California's School of Engineering to develop this AI software that will analyze scripts for gender bias, for looking at what genders, ethnicities are there, how many speaking lines those different groups have, the vocabulary sophistication on that, and what kind of social status those groups have. I liken it to when you were in college and did papers on Turnitin.com to check for plagiarism, but in this case it's checking for gender bias. And so she is partnering with Walt Disney to establish that software and kind of analyze manuscripts for films through that software. And it seems right in line with what Disney's doing. I mean, the revival era has seen a grander inclusion of women in film. You've got different races like in Moana. You've got different movies kind of like Zootopia, which is an allegory on racism wrapped up in a cop movie and a talking animal movie. Disney's doing a little bit more to kind of diversify the portfolio and stand out and really bring in people, include people that have been underrepresented in film. And so with this software coming up, it's kind of intriguing to see how the film industry is taking actionable steps to seeing different types of representation being improved upon in film. The one thing I'm worried about is with every software, how is the software made? What specific, how do you tweak the software to decide what is analyzed as what way? I am interested to see how this technology moves forward, and maybe we'll get to see it be used for some scripts in the future. I would like to see a demo of how this works. But right now, Geena Davis, she's partnering with that studio to see what it can do. I kind of want to see what the software does. Right now, we're going to double whammy some lawsuits here. I know lawsuits are not the most fun thing to talk about. Excuse me while I take a sip, because this is going to be a big one. By the way, what are y'all drinking? Right now, I'm drinking a Cosmic Sour from Sam Adams. Now, this is pretty good. If you're into tart kind of beer, I think you'd like this one. Right now we're going to talk about James Franco. He has a sexual harassment and exploitation lawsuit from his now defunct acting school. These two women, Sarah Tither Kaplan and Toni Gall, have sued Franco and the the acting school, which was called Studio 4, was in LA and was founded in 2014. They have sued him for sexually exploitative behavior. There's a lot of scumminess kind of going around with this one, that the acting school was using a sex scene masterclass that just to be in the school, you had to pay $300 a month. And they were promised exclusive opportunities to audition for short films, but those ended up being available to all actors. And you could take multiple classes that were upwards of $750, $1,000, up to $2,000 for classes. One of them was this sex scene masterclass, in which someone had to audition to be part of that class, and the rights to those audition tapes where people were nude the school and Franco exploited and coerced the rights of that footage out, that these women would find these audition tapes that they had made just part of images on the internet. They weren't kept safe, they weren't kept private and used in the right way to find these actresses opportunities. And right now, let me talk about this here. So, the first woman, I think Gall, she didn't take the class, but Tither Kaplan did. And she noted that in one occasion, Franco would be simulating oral sex, but instead of using the plastic guard that you would to cover somebody's privates, he would take that off and simulate that action on them. There were no nudity riders, which is a stipulation added to a contract that you would add for the union. This has a description of the scene. This has the type of nudity that you have. It's basically a negotiation between the actor and producer, setting up the scenes of like, okay, this is how it's going to go. This is what I consent to. This is the way the scene's going to go. And we're going to have this written in legal writing so nobody can be taken advantage of. That stuff was not there. And the right... Usually with a nudity writer, you give the production company consent to use whatever footage they have of you nude to the purposes of the movie. If you need that to sell the movie, you will consent to give away those rights. When those writers aren't signed, however, that's where the problem comes in. That's where people don't give consent to be photographed nude or seeing the distribution of those nude scenes spread out to the world, and it gets really, really messy from there. So right now, those two women are suing James Franco and his studio for that sexually exploitative behavior. And unfortunately, this is not the first time James Franco's been caught in trouble. There was an LA Times report where some women reported inappropriate sexual behavior. That was last year. And James Franco, man, they found Instagram messages where he was trying to pick up a 17-year-old girl at the age of 36. So unfortunately, it's not James Franco's first rodeo with sexually inappropriate behavior, and it just looks like it's continuing this pattern of messed up behavior. Again, these are allegations. We'll learn more as the story develops, but right now it seems, we're starting to see a lot more skeletons in that closet, you know what I mean? So, kind of concerned about that. And right now we're going to move to our second lawsuit of the week. Man, this is kind of a bummer. Robert De Niro is being sued by his executive assistant for gender discrimination. The woman in question is Graham Chase Robertson, who is the executive assistant on De Niro's Canal Productions. And this is kind of a doozy. She said that she was underpaid because she was a woman. She was called derogatory names. De Niro met her while wearing pajamas or a bathrobe, asked her to rub his back. He made multiple sexually suggestive jokes, even let one of his friends slap her butt without saying anything to the contrary, and just a lot of nasty stuff here. It says that she was dealing with years of sexual harassment and unwanted, gratuitous physical contact. Now, what's interesting about this one, too, is that De Niro's company actually sued her for misappropriating some funds. A lot of expenses were misreported, that she was, despite being paid $300,000 a year, she was lazing around on Netflix, and she was using frequent flyer miles incorrectly, like a lot of stuff. Of course, Robinson has asserted that these are just basically hit pieces on her character to distract her and to dissuade her from pursuing a lawsuit any further. But right now, there's a lot of back and forth battle with what's going on. Again, all of these are allegations. I hope that, I hope that she's not lying. I hope that if he's, doing this kind of behavior, that this kind of stuff stops. And I hope that if she is lying, that she's, properly reprimanded for that as well. But I just wanted to let y'all know that lawsuit's going around too. A lot of sexual discrimination and sexual harassment is being brought to light these days, and there's a lot more conversations being had about that kind of stuff. But I'm going to end the news week with some positive news, which is Tyler Perry is opening. He is the first African-American owner of a major studio lot. He is opening it, I believe, today as I'm talking about this. Tyler Perry Studios will open in Atlanta a $250 million studio lot with multiple sound stages? Oh my god. Multiple sound stages, multiple locations and buildings. It's located at Fort McPherson. He bought the land in 2015, and it's not like it hasn't been used already. People have filmed on it, including production for like Black Panther, Rampage, First Man, The Walking Dead is filmed there. This lot has been used already for major productions, and Tyler Perry is looking for this studio lot to rival those in Hollywood. Again, Georgia is a huge place for film. A lot of the Marvel movies will film over there. I think it's because Georgia gives everybody a good tax break. And for Tyler Perry specifically, I believe at the BET Awards he made this speech about black proprietorship and how, instead of seeking a seat at the table, he wanted to build his own. And so this is going to build on this idea that people like Perry and Killer Mike have built up, this idea that you need to, build your own sources of wealth, your own sources of generational wealth in order to improve the black community. And so to see this kind of milestone being taken on by somebody, despite what you think of Tyler Perry, I think it's a good advancement. I think that this kind of stuff is hopefully going to inspire other people to grow and branch out and build their own sources of income and proprietorship. And hopefully with more people in minority groups getting their own piece of the pie, you'll see a greater advancement on representation and ownership, and we'll get to see more interesting stuff come out of Hollywood. But I just wanted to give my kudos and shout-outs to Tyler Perry for achieving that accomplishment. And that's going to be it for the news show. Right now we're going to introduce the second neighborhood shout-out of the week, and this week's neighborhood shout-out goes to none other than Rachel from Rachel Reviews Everything. She has been a huge fan of the channel, huge supporter, comments on damn near everything. I appreciate her support. Her channel is a lot of fun. She reviews a lot of TV shows. We're trying to get her to review, more products and random stuff, because Rachel reviews everything, right? Please don't take that literally. But I'm really happy with what she's doing. I think she's getting better at making videos every single day, and I hope that if you haven't already supported Rachel's channel, you will go find the card, description, and screen, whatever, and support her channel, because I definitely think she deserves your attention. But like I said, that's going to be it for Welcome to the Neighborhood episode 2. Thank you very much for watching. I greatly appreciate y'all. Let me know what you think about the news in the comments below. Tell me everything that's on your mind. Let me know if you want me to talk about a certain news topic for next week, either in the comments or on my Twitter. That's going to be linked in the description as well. If you want to keep learning, talking about movies, subscribe to the channel. But right now, it is time for you to choose your own adventure between one of these videos. On the left is the Blu-ray Blind Buy. I did this one to Recycle Books in Denton, Texas. And on the right is my review of Joker, which I was not a fan of. So, you've got a decision to make. Choose your own adventure, and I will see y'all next time.